Big victory in Alberta for the United Conservative Party could spell big trouble for the federal government. Premier-designate Jason Kenney spent much of the campaign provoking a fight with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau over the carbon tax and pipelines and equalization payments. So how will the Liberal government work with a premier ready for battle? Let's find out. Joining me now is the Transport Minister, Marc Garneau. He's in Montreal. Happy Easter, first of all, to you and your family, Minister. The first thing Jason Kenney says he's going to do is repeal the Alberta carbon tax, and he'll join 4 other provinces taking the federal government to court over this. Will the federal government apply the carbon tax on Alberta that it's already done to provinces like Ontario?
Well, as you know, we were a couple of years ago working with the provinces to put in place the Pan-Canadian framework, and Alberta, and I commend it for its leadership, was part of that group. I won't speak for what Premier-designate Jason Kenney will do, and I congratulate him, by the way, on his victory. But as you know, the plan under the Pan-Canadian framework is that if provinces choose to opt out of it, we will be applying the backstop.
Yeah, you will apply the backstop. I guess it's all contingent upon this federal court case. Is your government confident that you'll win the court case, which would give the government or affirm legal jurisdiction for the federal government to impose this carbon price?
Well, we believe that we have the authority to do it. We'll see how the court case works out. We really do want to work with Alberta. We really do want to get their oil and gas to world markets. You know our involvement with the TMX, and we're working very hard to satisfy the 2 conditions that were put on us by the Federal Court of Appeal. And you may have heard Minister Soe say that we believe we'll be in a position to make a decision on the 18th of June. So we hope that we will be able to resolve that issue, and we hope that the Alberta government will continue with its leadership on the climate action front, which it has had, not just under Premier Notley, but as far back as 10 years ago.
Yeah, although Jason Kenney is very open, he's going to repeal as Act Number 1 Alberta's carbon tax that they have, so that's going to disappear, and then the battle will be on. What will the federal government do, Minister, if Jason Kenney passes what he calls the turn off the tap legislation, which would cut off an oil supply to British Columbia in the event that they try to stop or oppose the Trans Mountain Pipeline?
Well, I would simply say, and I think it's backed up by a lot of experts and people from industry, that to turn off the taps to British Columbia would hurt Alberta every bit as much as it would hurt British Columbia, perhaps even more. So that is not something that should be taken lightly as a decision. We believe that it would be unfortunate if that happened, and we hope that Premier-designate Jason Kenney will reconsider that.
Okay, but if he doesn't reconsider, because he's not that kind of guy, he says, you know, I'm going to do this, would the federal government challenge that in court? Would you step in?
I think that it's a decision that can be taken by the Alberta government. I'm not an expert from a legal point of view, but I hope that it is not something that the Alberta government will move ahead on.
There's so many things Jason Kenney promises to do, and it looks like it's pretty tumultuous. He promises to hold a referendum in 2021 to remove equalization from the Constitution Act. I'm not talking about just changing the formula. Remove it from the Act unless he gets pipelines, not only west Trans Mountain, but energy east. What's your response to that?
Well, the issue of equalization is a federal jurisdiction, and you know, I think Premier-designate Kenney knows this, because the last time that the equalization was modified was under the Harper government, when Minister Kenney was a Minister of Cabinet. So I think he knows that it is a federal jurisdiction, and so from you know, I guess in terms of a federal response, it is a federal issue, so it is something that the federal government has to make decisions on.
Yeah, but fascinating that he wants to change that as well. Can we turn to this federal, the court battle over the carbon tax? Obviously, Ontario has made the case that you have no jurisdiction, the federal government. And in Ontario now, Doug Ford is putting on a full slate of advertisements, radio ads, posters at gas stations talking about how the carbon tax is raising the price of gas. I know you tweeted back a picture of you filling up an electric car, but What is the government's response to this? Are you starting to recognize that 3 years ago, your government ran on a price on carbon and a carbon tax, and it looks like provincial election after provincial election, sir, people are rejecting it. They rejected it in under Doug Ford in Ontario. They've just rejected it in Alberta. What message does that send to your government?
Well, you know, we live in Canada and we live under a system whereby there are provinces and there's a federal government. 2 years ago, the picture was quite different from what it is now, and a few years from now, it may be quite different again. Our job is to work with the provinces on the issue of the environment. We believe very seriously that there has to be a price on pollution. We want to make sure that we leave our country to our children or our grandchildren in a good state. And when you talk about pollution, the pollution that is created in any province in this country, especially with the prevailing winds, can go from one province to another province, and so it really is a federal matter. In fact, we deal with pollution coming from across the Pacific Ocean. This is not something where you create pollution within your province and you deal with that and it doesn't affect everybody else. It affects the entire planet.
You know, I know you guys keep making the case, but if you look at Ontario and Saskatchewan and Manitoba and now Alberta and New Brunswick, province after province is sending a message to Justin Trudeau. Whatever plan you guys have, they don't want it. Does that make your government want to reconsider what you're doing? Or do you just say, all those provinces keep electing Conservatives who are running against the carbon tax, we don't care, we're going to push it through anyway?
We believe that the majority of Canadians believe that we must take action on the environment and that there is a price to pay. There has to be a price on pollution. We feel that this is an issue where Canada, from a federal government perspective, must demonstrate leadership. And we have taken the position that we have made very, very clear to everybody. And we hope to be able to work with all of the provinces. And, you know, if we can do that, I think that we can accomplish our objectives and at the same time grow the economy.
All right, I got to leave it there. Minister Garneau, great to have you back on the program. Happy Easter to you and your family.